It's 3:15, and that means it's time for...
The Real Deal with Bill McNeil.
That's right. Welcome once again to The Real Deal with Bill McNeil. I'm your host, Bill McNeil, and you're probably wondering exactly what is The Real Deal today.
Hey, good question.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's time for some more comic industry news. We got a lot of information coming out from DC Comics about their upcoming October releases. We got a couple of horror comics. They've got one creator in common, although they're not related to each other. But we also have James Tynion, the big name, hottest writer in all of comics, is attached to one of the projects as well. Obviously, he's doing the Batman and some other big things that we'll talk about here in a little bit. The other name, not so big. I'm a little skeptical. In fact, I'm pretty much skeptical about all 5 of these comic books for different reasons. I'm probably going to read 3 of them. 2 of them feel like skipperoonies, but we also have 3 new DC Black Label books that we need to talk about. And I must say, I thought DC were getting back to like Black Label as it was originally intended. It was going to be like 3 and 4 issue miniseries, bigger page counts, bigger format, higher prices, but higher quality books. And now with these next 3 DC Black Label books, they're all over the place again. What is DC Black Label? Can you tell me? I have no idea. And I definitely want to hear from you guys. Which one of these comics are you most excited about that's debuting in October? DC versus Vampires, Task Force Z, Batman the Imposter, The Human Target, or Catwoman, Lonely City? We've got an array of titles. 3 of them, of course, led by Batman or Batman-related characters. Shocking, right? Do we have enough Batman? That's the question. Let me know that in the comment section. Do you have Bat fatigue yet? Is Bat fatigue real? That's the question. Let's get right into some of these titles. The first one is going to be DC versus Vampires, and this is going to be Batman, shocking, and Green Lantern leading the Justice League against a legion of vampires. This is going to be writers Matthew Rosenberg and James Tynion IV, along with artist Otto Schmidt. 12-issue maxi series debuting in October. $5 for both the cardstock and normal cover. Probably pretty smart to attach James Tynion's name to this comic book. Matthew Rosenberg cannot sell anything on his name alone. And I'm sure DC agrees with me that he probably cannot carry a DC versus Vampires book. James Tynion is exceptionally busy. He's writing Batman. He's writing Joker. He's writing The Nice House on the Lake. He's writing Something That's Killing the Children. What is he writing? Department of Truth? Razor Blades? He's really busy. There's no way he's doing more than just co-plotting this comic with Rosenberg. He simply just doesn't have the time. So I imagine Rosenberg is going to be doing the lion's share of work on this one, along with artist Otto Schmidt. And this is what they have to say in the solicitation information. In the tradition of DC's comes a new terrifying story from the minds of James Tynion IV, Matthew Rosenberg, and Otto Schmidt. DC versus Vampires is a special standalone 12-issue maxi series that will pit the Justice League against a secret army of vampires, leaving our heroes unsure of who they can trust. Typically, zombie books, as far as in superhero universes, do really well. They're almost always really popular. Vampire books are a little bit harder to sell. I think adding Tynion's name to the project certainly helps. Also, trying to say this is in the vein of Deceased. Deceased obviously is a zombie book, but it did really well. Carved out its own little corner of the DC universe for Tom Taylor and really lifted his profile. I imagine that's the point of this Matthew Rosenberg project. We know that DC Comics are cutting corners as far as cost of creators. Matthew Rosenberg apparently is in their wheelhouse as far as their pay goes nowadays. And so they're trying to elevate him and maybe make him a name as far as DC Comics go. Marvel already tried this and it didn't work. He's an okay-ish horror writer, and he's a shitty superhero writer. That's just who he is. That's everything that he has brought to the table. Although I must admit, there was a 5-issue run of Uncanny X-Men before they rebooted X-Men for Jonathan Hickman. They had like 7 creators on Uncanny X-Men. They released it weekly, and it was really bad. As soon as he got untethered from those other assholes, and he got to do Uncanny for himself, I think he did 7 issues. 5 of them were good, and then it went to absolute crap for the last 2, where he started killing major characters off panel and stuff. So there is hope, because Matthew Rosenberg, he wrote 5 decent superhero comics in a row. I didn't think he had it in him. I imagine he didn't think he had it in him, but he's not a name. He's never going to be a name, but he is cheap. I think that is probably the reason that they put him on this book. They threw James Tynion's name on there to give it a little bit more cachet. James Tynion obviously brings the ladies to the yard. You know what I'm saying? His milkshake brings the ladies to the yard. You throw James Tynion's name on a comic book, people get excited about it. Although, trust me, James Tynion is not doing most of the work here. It's going to be the Matthew Rosenberg show. Obviously, they have been giving Matthew Rosenberg an opportunity. He has been writing that backup grifter story in Batman Urban Legends. I believe that one finished this week. Some people have said it's good. I'll say it's mediocre at best. It's all right, kind of, depending on what kind of mood you're in. He's just not a good writer. I don't know why DC's putting their chips on him, though, because he's got a second book, a second horror-themed book. Task Force Z, a zombified version of the Suicide Squad, is about to take over Gotham City. This is Matthew Rosenberg, artist Eddie Barrows, and Eber Ferreira. $5 for cardstock and normal cover. I'm not depressed, but it does make me unhappy that they're wasting such a phenomenal artist like Eddie Barrows on a Matthew Rosenberg book. Matthew Rosenberg? Why waste Eddie Barrows? Get that Tom Rainey guy on this book or somebody, you know? Where's Giannis Milianis when you need him? I'm sorry, if you're a Matthew Rosenberg fan, you and I happen to disagree on whether or not he's a good comic book writer. I think he sucks, especially at the big 2. I hope he proves me wrong here. Are we going to get okay horror writer or shitty superhero writer on Task Force Z and DC versus Vampires? All history indicates that we'll get the latter. But he had 5 issues on Uncanny X-Men that were kind of good. Well, they weren't kind of good. They were good. You should go read those. And this is what the solicitation has to say. On A-Day, hundreds of Gotham City's most dangerous and deranged criminals were left dead after an attack on Arkham Asylum, and now they're getting a second chance of life. A mysterious benefactor is bringing together a new task force and has recruited the only person who could lead them, someone who knows what it's like to come back from a brutal death, Red Hood. Now Jason Todd has to unravel the mystery surrounding this team of the recently deceased while leading a lineup of some of Marvel's worst criminals who've ever lived. Bane, Man-Bat, the Arkham Knight, Sundowner, and Mr. Blue. I like Jason Todd quite a bit. He's one of my favorite characters in DC Comics. What Chip Zdarsky has been doing with the character over on Urban Legends has been phenomenal. Why not just let Chip Zdarsky be the Jason Todd guy? Why is he leading this stupid Suicide Squad Get Joker team? He's in this Suicide Squad book. Why is he even on the Suicide Squad? He's not a villain. He's a hero that goes a little too far sometimes. It needs to be brought back. Chip Zdarsky's doing a great job on that character. Why sacrifice him on the altar of second-rate? No, why even second-rate? Third-rate, fourth-rate Matthew Rosenberg. Oh, just upsets you. Same thing for Eddie Barrows. Why are you wasting such a good writer on such a crappy, or such a good artist on such a crappy writer? It does irk me. And what is this in continuity? Are we having DC like zombies within the DC universe following A-Day that's leading into Fear State? Are zombies going to be part of Fear State? This is supposed to be an ongoing, but it sounds like it's in continuity. That sounds really weird. We're going to have zombies running the streets of Gotham and Batman's not going to take care of them? Sounds like a Batman problem. I don't know. Is this in continuity? It sounds like it shouldn't be, but it's mentioning events that are absolutely within the current continuity and the storylines that are driving the narrative of not only Batman, but Joker and other comics. It's confusing. Is this something to be excited for? I'm going to check them out. Certainly, DC versus Vampires. I'll check out an issue or two, see how it works. Task Force Z, It's got one of my favorite artists on it. It's got a shitty writer. We'll see what happens. He's an okay horror writer. Maybe that's what he brings to the table, and it's good enough to enjoy the art and not be completely turned off by the writing. Not excited particularly about either one of them, if I'm being completely honest. Now let's get to something I'm even less excited for. Shockingly, I'm a negative Nancy today. Once I read all this information, I was like, nothing really too exciting in here for me personally. I hope you're far more excited. And if you are, let me know why you are in the comment section. Let me know I'm an asshole. Be like, listen, I love Matthew Rosenberg. This is why he's good. And you're a douchebag, Wes. Let me know that in the comment section. I can take it. I'm being a negative Nancy here. Let me know why I'm wrong and you're right. This third series is going to be the DC Black Label book, Batman the Imposter. At first, when I started reading the details, like, this is interesting. It's kind of exploring an area of Batman's career that I really like, kind of around the Batman Year One era from Frank Miller. Really cool stuff. Now let's get into the details, and I'll explain why the bloom quickly came off the rose on this one. Written by Mattson Tomlin and illustrated by Andrea Sorrentino, launching in October. This is a 3-issue miniseries, DC Black Label. Feels like it's, what DC Black Label was originally supposed to be. Andrea Sorrentino, normally associated with Jeff Lemire. Sucks to see him working with another creator. But who the fuck is Mattson Tomlin? I imagine you're asking the same thing I was asking. I had to go look it up. He's the guy that wrote Project Power. If you watched that, I did not. I have Netflix and whatever, it didn't look all that good. But he's also an uncredited writer on The Batman by Matthew Reeves. So that would explain why he's got this gig and why he's writing this period of time, which is going to be explored in the Batman movie. So who the fuck is Mattson Tomlin? That's who Mattson Tomlin is. You shouldn't know who it is because he's essentially a nobody. It's a good thing there aren't 1,000 other comic book writers that are seasoned that have been champing at the bit to come and write a fucking Batman book or a Black Label book at DC Comics their entire lives or their entire careers, that this would be the pinnacle of their careers that they've always been working for. There's nobody within the comic book writing profession left that wants to write Batman. So we had to import Mattson Tomlinson. Who the fuck is that? Mattson, who the fuck is that? Tomlin into DC Comics. And this is what Mattson had to say. As a lifelong Batman fan, putting my spin on Gotham City has been a dream come true. It starts pretty well. Taking the question of what if Batman was real, as far as narratively possible, conjure the idea of potential that hasn't recently been explored in the comics. What has not recently been explored in Batman comics? This is the most overexposed character in the entire industry. Everything that you could do with Batman has been explored within the last 10 years, it feels like. He apparently has not been reading the comics, is a lifelong Batman fan of probably the movies, and maybe some of the TV shows. Sounds like he has been reading the comics, I'm just saying. Batman the Imposter treats Bruce Wayne and the people around him as tragically flawed and vividly real. This is when you do this, right? Your little bullshit factor goes in, pucker, right? With the obstacles Batman faces coming from a reality that closely mirrors our own. Of course, it mirrors a reality closely of our own. Who doesn't want to go into a comic book and read about a reality that mirrors the one that's right outside their door and all the shitty things going on right now? Nobody goes to read comics for escapism. I don't want to go see Gotham City. I want to read about shitty-ass Chicago in this comic book. So I was somewhat on board until I've read what the man had to say. And I don't think Mattson Tomlin sold this very well. Mattson, who the fuck is that Tomlin? Bruce Wayne's mission as Batman has only been underway for a year or so, but he can tell he's making a difference. Unfortunately, he's made some powerful enemies. All the traditional power brokers of Gotham resent the disruption that Batman has brought to town, and it seems one of them has a plan to neutralize him. There's a second Batman haunting Gotham's rooftops and alleys, and this one has no qualms about murdering criminals live and on tape. With the entire might of the Gotham City Police Department and Gotham's rich and powerful coming down on his head, Batman must find this imposter and somehow clear his name. But how can you prove your innocence from behind a mask? Whoever wrote that solicitation should have done the interview as well. They should have said, you know what? We appreciate you trying to help Mattson. You're not the guy. Let's bring somebody to the table that actually knows what comic fans want to hear when you're trying to sell a comic book. My goodness. Why would you do an interview and make yourself sound stupid? I don't know. I'm not buying that comic just because I don't like the creator just from his comment, from his one quote. It only takes one quote to turn me off to somebody I've never heard of before. Next up, a series I'm looking forward to even less, shockingly, The Human Target. Something that you would think would be kind of cool, really cool concept. But unfortunately, this Black Label title will be written by Tom King, illustrated by Greg Smallwood, and will feature Justice League International. So Tom King has wasted Jorge Borges, he's wasted Michael Yanin, he's wasted, who else he wasted? Clayman, he's wasted Mitch Gerrits. Ooh, we got Doc Shaner. How many great comic illustrators can Tom King absolutely waste their talent on? Greg Smallwood, welcome to the club. And Justice League International will be represented by Batman, Black Canary, Guy Gardner, Martian Manhunter, Mr. Miracle, and Cold War era Rocket Red. Should be all interesting stuff. It's going to be a 12-issue series coming up from DC Black Label. Like I said, I thought they were going down to 3 or 4 issue miniseries, which should actually suit Tom King's writing style, but it has to be a bloated 12-issue miniseries so he can put 7 issues of filler into it and waste all of our time with nothing, plots going nowhere for issues at a time. Have I mentioned I'm not a big Tom King fan? And it's he's going to be scared of women. He's going to be depressed. He being Christopher Chance, the actual character, he's referred to as the Human Target. If you're not aware of this, typically he protects clients from assassination by pretending to be the client and thus, escaping assassination himself. Is Tom King really the creator of someone who doesn't want to die? I don't know. That could be debated. I'm so done with Tom King, it's not even funny. I really wish my source that said Supergirl would be his last DC work was correct. I only reported that as rumor because I only heard it from one source. And obviously that was incorrect because the Human Target is here. Bound to be awful. Normally I would... I don't know. At this point, I'm just done with Tom King. I'm not even going to go read it. Unless somebody tells me something really insane happened, I will just pretend it never existed. Other than this part right here where I tell you what happened. If you're excited for Tom King's The Human Target, if you're excited to see Christopher Chance return to the DC Universe, definitely let me know in the comments section. Speaking of Christopher Chance, Cliff Chiang is coming back to DC Comics as a writer-illustrator of his own book. Why didn't he get The Human Target? It seems like that would be tailor-made to what he does best. But Cliff Chiang will not be doing The Human Target. He's writing Catwoman Lonely City, the final DC Black Label book. This is going to be a 4-issue series. And we'll see an aged Selena Kyle returning to a Gotham without Batman or other masked heroes. Cliff Chiang is not my favorite artist, but he's not bad at all. He's a good artist. Don't know how he is as far as writing goes. We shall see. This is an interesting pitch. Let me get a drink of water. Swig of water for the working man. It's an interesting pitch. A massacre known as Fool's Night took the lives of not only Batman, but Nightwing, Commissioner Gordon, and Joker. The event left Selena Kyle confined in prison and irreparably changed the landscape of Gotham City, with costume vigilantes considered a thing of the past. The series' first issue sees Selena emerging from prison into this bold new world run by Mayor Harvey Dent and policed by a squadron of no-nonsense bat cops. Is Gotham City interesting and worth my time without Batman, Nightwing, Gordon, or Joker? It doesn't feel like it. Even in Batman and Beyond, at least you got Batman, you got the new Batman, you have some of these older legacy characters around. I don't know. It's a hard sell for me to be interested in a Batman or a Gotham City book without any Batman characters other than Catwoman. I guess you have Bat Cops and Two-Face, but I don't know. I will check it out. I'm passing on Batman the Imposter and the Human Target. if I'm going to pass on Batman the Imposter, which initially I figured I would want to read, I guess I'll check out the first issue of Catwoman, The Lonely City, even though it's likely to be $7 or $8. And we'll see how it goes. I just don't see Gotham City being interesting without Batman, Gordon, Nightwing, and Joker. That's crazy. If you want to see what a great character Gotham is, you definitely need to read Gotham City of Crime. I read that while I was in the hospital waiting for my son was already born, when I was waiting for us to be discharged. It was a really good series. If you want the series, the definitive Gotham comic book, City of Crime is the one to read. And that is the news. We've got 5 new comic books. I was a negative Nancy today. I'm not too high on any of them. I think Matthew Rosenberg, he fits the new profile of art or writer that DC is looking for. He's cheap. Probably smart to throw James Tynion on that vampire book. They probably should have got Scott Snyder to co-write the Task Force C book. You know what I mean? Nobody pays for a comic book because it says Matthew Rosenberg. And I think even if it said Batman on it, there's only so many people that are going to buy it when it's not the Batman book. So whatever. We'll see how Matthew Rosenberg goes. I'll check him out because I always read those kind of comics, at least for the first few issues. I would have read Batman the Imposter until Mattson, who the fuck is that Tomlin, decided to say that I'm going to do stuff that could never be explored in comics, and this is all going to be real. We're basing this stupid Gotham on everything that's happening in the world today. Sounds like a skipperoonie to me. The Human Target. I cannot have any more Tom King in my life. I've had enough. And finally, Cliff Chang returns to DC Comics with Catwoman. I'm sorry I was a negative Nancy. If you're excited for these, let us know in the comments section. Tell me why I'm wrong. I deserve it today. I'm normally more upbeat. I just none of these are hitting me in my feel spots. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying.